views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, it is time for the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's television program where you get to meet journalists, writers, photographers, sometimes videographers, and find out what they're reporting on and what they're thinking of when they go out in the streets of the Bronx and report to you. It gives you a little more insight when you read something or see something on TV as to what you're reading. And we're going to start off the show this evening with my good friend Alex Mitchell. Nice to have you with us, Alex. Alex is with this newspaper, the Bronx Times. Nice to have you with us, my friend.
Thank you very much, Gary.
Alex and I have a rich conversation. Listen, let's not pretend. We have a rich conversation about baseball every time he comes in. The last time he was here, he wore an Aaron Judge jersey. He brought me what is it, the judge's gavel.
How many days to spring training?
That's it. So listen, you know, you can't always be the best, and you hope for the best, and that's the way the game goes.
Yes, that's
I'm not even asking for a comment there. There you go. Anyway, let's really talk about Bronx issues. One of the most fascinating things to come out of this very difficult week we had with the pipe bombs and then, of course, the shootings in Pennsylvania was that the explosives that did not detonate in the mail were taken to, you read it in the paper, they were taken up to the Bronx,
right
to
here?
Rodman's Neck. Now, talk to me about that. Now, did you put out the story yet? Not yet.
That comes out in about 12 hours.
All right, there you
So,
go. So Thursday, you'll be able to read about what actually happened.
right. So what happened was every single explosive in New York City that's recovered by the police, they all go to Rodman's Neck. A lot of people think that it's just the firing range up there, but no, the bomb squad, that's where they do their handiwork, and they've had a pretty busy week between the one sent to CNN,
and
Rob De Niro. Yeah,
yes, of course.
Gee whiz, it's been a lot. But what they do, what I learned from a few police sources that I spoke to, detonating the bomb is like a worst case scenario. It's a last resort. They never want to blow it up. They want to investigate it. They want to.
If they blow it up, they lose all the evidence.
They lose, they lose the evidence. They lose everything that they have on it. And what they try to do, actually, they try to take it apart piece by piece to see where the parts were bought or sold from, to kind of trace the steps of how it was made.
Was any of the work that was done in Rodman's Neck part of the investigation that led to the arrest of the gentleman who's the suspect? You don't know.
Even if it's confirmed or not confirmed, you have to imagine that it played a substantial role.
And do we know how they did? I mean, did they dismantled all of them? I guess they were all built the same way, right?
They dismantled them, but because this is also a federal case, it doesn't just stop in Rodman's Neck. They're being sent to an FBI facility in Quantico, Virginia. Mm-hmm. So they, again, the whole can't blow these things up. We do our part, we dissect them, and then the FBI is going to kind of, check our work.
It's unbelievable work, and of course, all of our hats are off to the personnel that do it. Do you know how many people work on that? I mean, did that come up? Did you see them do any of that? I guess they wouldn't let you close.
No.
You'd be happy not being that close.
The press pass doesn't get me that into the facility, but it's a team of, I'd say, over 50 easily, and the containment vessel that they use to get this thing, because you have to remember, you have to physically get it from Midtown to Rodman's Neck, and I know you've been stuck in plenty of Bronx traffic. Can you imagine just seeing the bomb right next to you while you're stuck there?
Well, I'm pretty sure they would stop traffic.
They do an escort and everything, but they put it in this containment pod. It looks kind of like a weird washing machine, the way that you shut it and lock it, but what it's meant to do is, if, heaven forbid, it were to detonate, it has pressure valves that would kind of absorb the shock and almost not affect the surrounding area.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I know there, it was mentioned. Were you the only reporter there? I mean, the only, to your knowledge, who really got to some? I realize you didn't get inside.
I think I've taken the most Bronx angle to it.
Wow,
Definitely.
Great. Congratulations. I do want to mention another story that you did, and I think I communicated to you about it. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because BronxNet is doing politics elsewhere, and you and I have some other things to talk about. But you did a story about the guy who was running against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and to my knowledge, you broke that story about the fact that he had, I forget his name already, that he,
Anthony Pappas.
Anthony Pappas had abused his wife and was kind of still paying it off when he was running for Congress. Congratulations on that story. And I did it to you personally, as you know.
Yeah, thank you.
But I
for
want to
that.
say publicly that was a tremendous piece of work.
We we got the tip. The Republican committees of the Bronx and Queens were very helpful. They put out a full-on statement explaining what happened, and
we were, I should have gone back to it at the beginning of the show as we were talking baseball. You also did a fascinating story outside Yankee Stadium. Now, this was right before the playoffs or during the...
this was walking into the wild card game.
Into the wild card game.
Yeah, the last time when I had the
when
the
you
judge,
came in and
Yep.
brought in your...
That's where I was
jersey.
heading after that.
Right.
So a good friend of mine, Andre Trenier, amazing artist, muralist, he was called on right before the playoffs to redo his mural of Reggie Jackson in between Billy's and
at the
Stan's.
side of the building on River Avenue.
On River, yep, right by Billy's and Stan's Sports Bars. You can't miss it, right by the subway tracks.
Right.
And they call him on last second, just, hey, Yankees are gonna have a deep postseason run. Let's get you to redo this. So I literally bump into him. I'm heading to the game, and I see Andre working, and I'm like, Andre, what's
this guy?
up? Yeah, I know him personally. I've done some stories on him in the past.
And so you just happened to be there. And
I was just like, we got to do a story on this.
Wow.
And
what a great story.
so as you know, our deadline ends Wednesday, even though our paper comes out Friday. So when I had begun writing the story, the Yankees were still in the playoffs.
Right.
And then
And you, as a Yankee fan, had also great expectations.
I
about that.
did. Thank you for that. But
It is what it is.
long story short, they get eliminated before we go to press with it. So I have to pretty much change everything around.
there you go.
And I have to start saying, well, it was such a great idea for a long, painful winter. But
You are also, you were telling me about kind of a new thing that's coming out in the Bronx Times.
Yes.
And I was fascinated by it. I think it's a wonderful concept. So let's talk about that a little bit.
So as you know, I'm sure more than anybody else, the Bronx is changing. It is the real estate hotspot right now. So much is
I have
happening.
to tell you, not more than anybody else. I know about it, but I don't take any. I don't have any extra knowledge.
No insider
so
trading
wanna
going on,
wanna
so-
put that. I want to put that in context.
But obviously the South Bronx, the area of Port Morris and down on that Little Bronx waterfront between Lincoln, Bruckner, Alexander Avenue, as I talked about Milkburger last time, a little bit further down the line, but it's rapidly changing and becoming like a cultural hotspot.
Right.
And we're doing...
Some people are saying it's the beginning of gentrification.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but I said some people are saying that.
Things are changing and people are coming in, bottom line, whether that be good or bad. But a lot of businesses are coming in too. A lot of cultural hubs of the Bronx, for the Bronx, by the Bronx, is also coming in there. And there's, even though things are changing, there is a real keep it borough-centric. If things are going to change, it's going to change the way that we want it to. At least that's what a lot of the businesses are doing down there, and a lot of the arts, the restaurants, and obviously I got to try some more pizza. So.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And so as a result of that, you didn't give me the punchline yet. As a result of that, what is going to be in the newspaper?
Just about every week, we're doing a new profile on one of the businesses, one of the art galleries, one of the anything, so the restaurants, everything going on down there. Pretty much whatever it is that's happening in there, we're going to have a story on it over the next few weeks, putting together a little South Bronx profile. So.
I certainly applaud it. The larger issue, of course, is it's so complicated, But if those businesses are owned and run by Bronx people who hire Bronx people, when people with more money come in, will they be helping to fuel the Bronx, or will there be enough displacement that these folks who are involved in this will be part of a movement that helps move others out? You know, I don't know that you have to answer it right now, but I know that's the balance sheet that's out there right now.
Well, to quote what the Bronx native told me.
Yes.
He said, I want to see the borough
Morris.
come up. Yep.
Yes.
I want to see the borough come up, but I want to see the borough come up, meaning that it's our own people doing it. Right. And I think that's really what the strut forward
So
is.
in other words, if his point of view is if a store owned by somebody from the outside, even if it was a funky store, an art store, or you know some other kind of coffee shop or something else, if they came in, there would be some upsetness because Bronx people were not benefiting. But if he does better or other people do better, and it's Bronx people who benefit, then you know.
Then the borough just gets better.
Listen, we're almost out of time, but this is what and it's a fascinating dialogue. You weren't really on the beat when the new Yankee Stadium was built, but this is what
I was in high school.
There you go. Well, this is what that dialogue was about, and I'd be curious. And you're a Yankee fan. The dialogue was, you know, because eventually we ended up getting the Bronx Terminal Market. The dialogue was whether it would be better to do something with the neighborhood and build a neighborhood there rather than build, you know, the mall that went there. And one of the theories that was out there is that the people who come to the games would never be interested in, you know, walking through the Bronx or anything like that. I disputed that notion. Your thoughts as a Yankee fan?
As a Yankee fan, I think that something would do great down there, and that's why NYCFC, the soccer team that plays at Yankee Stadium, they're looking just a little south of that market to potentially put a stadium. The Hip Hop Museum. So your notion is correct, and people are seeing that, especially when you look across the river now at Harlem. You know, it's like, joke's on you guys. This is such a valuable area.
Got it. All right, listen, Alex Mitchell, beyond a pleasure to have you. You know, I'd make you my co-host if I could, but that's not in the offing. But check him out in the Bronx Times, and he comes here and he tells what he thinks. Not everybody does that. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much. We'll be right back with Michael Benjamin from the New York Post. We're going to talk about some of the politics, some of the election stuff, and even talk Trump. So don't go away.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self, and I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family?
This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything.
Oh, sorry. Go along, son!
it's always worth it.
Whoa! Master!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
Hey, it's Ava, and this is Tess from Vivo's Do It Yourselfie, where we recreate the hottest looks from today's biggest music videos.
After cleaning out our closet, we have a lot of clothes we don't wear anymore.
Like this old t-shirt.
It's not garbage, it's actually a brand new rug.
And to make it, all you need to do is cut, tie, and glue.
Cut the t-shirt into strips.
Tie the strips into knots.
And glue the knots to the bath mat. I love it. Give your garbage another life.
And recycle.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. And we're going downtown right now. And we're going to talk to our longtime friend, Michael Benjamin, former assemblyman, but now with the New York Post editorial board. And so, Michael, how are you today? What's going on?
I'm good, Gary. How are you?
I'm doing well, just trying to sort through about 1,000 different issues that are out there. Let's start with you. Yeah, well, let's start with you and talk about the upcoming midterm elections. Specifically, let's stay in New York State and talk about Governor Cuomo. He agreed finally to debate his Republican opponent. And I'm just curious what you think and where are we at in the governor's race?
The one debate that was televised between him and Marcus Molinaro was at a date and time of his choosing, unfortunately. And today, right now, there was a League of Women Voters sponsored debate, including all the candidates, and the only candidate not to show up was Governor Cuomo. He didn't want. First, he wanted to be in a debate with all the candidates, and now suddenly that's been arranged, and he wants to do a Rose Garden campaign and not actually be out there having to defend his record to New Yorkers and to those who would seek to replace him as governor.
You know, Michael, you know what I do for a living, and you know how passionate we are at BronxNet for running debates and moderating debates, and you know that I work at making them as fair as possible. I would never support any candidate who does that, and it's a shame. This is an editorial comment, if you will, because the governor has a tremendous following. There are many things he does very well, but to be too shy or manipulative or whatever you want, to not be there, from somebody who believes in media and democracy, it's bothersome. I have no other way to say it.
I would agree, and the shameful thing is, too, instead of debating the issues, and there are plenty to debate around New York State economic development, corruption, what he's doing as governor when it comes to issues around minorities in our state, women's issues. He'd much rather talk about it and assail his opponent as being a Trump mini-me. You know, Trump is not on the ballot. Trump is not running for governor of New York. And yes, some of the national policies that Trump proposes could have a negative impact on New York, just like his the SALT deductions.
Michael, you know
not
what
the person the governor should be running against.
What you are saying is totally true, and actually, I moderated 2 debates that included Republican candidates for assembly, and they both basically, I don't want to say they swore off the national Republican ticket, but they expressed things that did not agree with the ticket. Here's what the problem is that the people in the state Senate, the Republicans in the state Senate, still reflect that and refuse to come out and really, say, well, you know what, we don't agree with many of the things that Trump does. So it becomes very difficult for a Republican in the Bronx to say, I don't support that. But you know what I mean? It's
I understand
it's
that, but
hard.
what does that have to do with education funding in New York State? What does that have to do with economic development for upstate New York, for the southern tier, natural gas fracking?
Right.
What does that have to do, with the issues that are important to New Yorkers that would get us back on our feet? Whether it's the DREAM Act. Yes, the DREAM Act is affected by national immigration policy, but in the meantime, should there be an effort to help New Yorkers, New York children who've done well in high school, qualified for college, and would like a little bit of assistance to help them complete their degree and be assets to America? That's something that needs to be debated, and not debated as a Trump issue.
Yeah, Michael, you have made an excellent point. It's a fair point, and there you go. I thought you expressed it incredibly well. And again, I would just repeat, the governor has done many things and is respected for many things. It would have been nice had he defended his record on camera. What can I tell you? Let's talk a little bit about the national scene a little bit. We've had a absolutely terrible time with the mailing of bombs to Democrats and members of the media, and also, of course, the shooting in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh. There's so many angles. I'm just going to open it up. I did this with candidates in a debate twice this week. What aspect of it is interesting to you that you'd like to bring up? Because we talk about hate speech. We can talk about, whatever you want. We can talk about guns. What's interesting to you out of this?
Well, what's interesting for me is that I haven't been necessarily publicly denouncing the president, whether it's in public or it's on Twitter, or it's in any forum, he's a president and he's allowed, with his majority in Congress, to do it as they would like to do when it comes to public policy. But I really got incensed this past week with the mail bombs, with the murders in Pittsburgh of people simply being in their synagogue and simply being attacked because they're of the Jewish faith, and the president, not taking it seriously. I mean, his first response was that, had the synagogue had armed security, they would have stopped Robert Bowers. That's not the point. The point is 11 people were dead and 6 more were injured, including police officers who were responding to this outrage.
Michael, for me, it's hard. I don't know if others can, but for me, it's hard to argue with what you're saying. And here's another thing. If you look at, who's causing terror in America and who's causing mayhem, and then you look at, whatever, how many 1,000 people are migrants are marching toward the Mexico border with the United States, and then the movement of 5,000 troops. Shouldn't we take a look at who is causing America and if causing terror in America and address that head on? Because those lives lost in Pittsburgh, the threats, thank goodness, of those bombings. I mean, it could have been beyond disastrous. So to me, you got to go right after it,
Right. Well, when responsible people try to do that, the president and his supporters say that they're perpetuating fake news. They're raising false issues. Where we're talking about a man who, every time he goes out on the campaign trail, he's demonizing immigrants. He's demonizing this particular set of migrants who are on a caravan through Central America, through Mexico, allegedly coming to cross the U.S. border. We're told that they're full of vermin, they're full of MS-13 gangs.
And terrorists.
Terrorists. They've got tuberculosis, they've got Ebola, And then you've got this lunatic in Pittsburgh who targeted Jews to kill them, and using bad language in social media, referring to them as vermin. Well, how is Jews as vermin any different than the president calling migrant workers, calling them, disease-ridden criminals, terrorists?
Michael,
here's dehumanizing language.
Here, let's bring on your passion. Certainly comes through. Here's the $64,000 question. How does this affect what happens on Tuesday? Now, you and I are New Yorkers, Bronxites, and we have a distorted view of what's going on in Missouri and Idaho because we don't live there. We may have a sense of it. Do you think others in America outside of our little enclave here in New York will perceive what you perceive and come out and say, you know what, this can't happen?
I believe so. I happen to believe.
You do think so?
I have great faith in my American brothers and sisters across the country, in the Midwest, in the South, and in the far North, that they will do the right thing. Many of them are outraged by our president and his language. He goes on a campaign trail where he uses, whether he's doing it consciously or not, I happen to believe he's doing it consciously, where he uses terms like nationalist, globalism. He's using key words to turn out what he believes to be his base. Well, yeah, your base may turn out because of that, but they're very small. What you're doing is you're angering and activating others, whether they're Democrats or they're independents or Republicans who are PO'd at him for what he's doing to their party. They're going to come and vote, and hopefully they want to vote for moderating influences in Congress that can moderate what Trump has been talking, what he wants to do. And so we can have some real adults in D.C. trying to get things accomplished rather than trying to stir up passion and further divide our nation.
Michael, here's another look at this. Where do you believe that the Democrats have gotten their appropriate visibility in the face of the things that many people perceive? My perception is that the Democrats have laid back and are either hoping it's going to be so outrageous that people will realize for themselves, or they're letting the media tell the story for them. Because I almost never see a leading Democrat interviewed on national TV, or, there was a news about Ford laying off, I forget what the number was, thousands of employees. They should have had a press conference in front of a Ford plant in Detroit and talked about it. Instead, it became news. The president denies it or he ignores it, and then it disappears. My sense is the Democrats
in New York as the national news, but I think if you're on the ground as a candidate running for Congress, whether it's in Detroit or other parts of Michigan, or it's in the Midwest, or it's in California, Texas, Idaho, you're talking about those issues. You're talking about health care. You're talking about employment issues. You're talking about protectionism and how it's hurting the American consumer and the American worker. I mean, those things I think are being done on the ground.
But are you
Democrats in office have ads on the air addressing those things?
Okay, that could be. That could be. In fact, I asked Michael Blake, who's of course on the Democratic National Committee, a similar kind of question, and he responded in the same way. Of course, I guess a concern would be that people get their news from Fox News and don't quite listen. But maybe you're correct. Maybe that it's happening on a larger scale. I don't know.
They get their news locally, whether it's the local Fox station or the local NBC station, but they're still getting news locally. Many of them still actually read their community and neighborhood and city newspapers that are there, so they get their news that way. We can't just base things on what happens in New York. New York's an anomaly. We're not competitive politically with Republicans.
Yep.
So our folks who are running for re-election as Democrats don't have to run ads.
Yep,
they don't have to do much.
You're right. Michael, we got to get going. Listen, you and I have been on the air 1,000 times. This was one of the most stirring dialogues we've had, and I really appreciate your passion. And maybe I'll see you election night. That'll be really a lot of fun.
Looking forward. Thanks for having me on again.
All the best. Thank you. All right, there you go. That is Michael Benjamin with the editorial board of the New York Post. And when he was an assemblyman, he used to come on. I had a morning show on BronxNet, and we used to have those kinds of dialogues. And now he's in a different role, and we're still batting it about. And so I really appreciate his time. I also appreciate Alex Mitchell from the Bronx Times, who is here. BronxNet has a whole series of voter information and voter education programs. We did interviews about the propositions. I moderated a couple of debates. And then on election night, BronxNet Television will be doing a special so that you can get the whole picture from a Bronx perspective. See you around town. Good night.